Let me introduce our next speaker, which is Kelli Begay, who's an enrolled member of the Kickapoo tribe of Oklahoma. Mrs. Begay is a registered dietitian nutritionist in her role as a nutrition consultant for the Indian Health Service Division of Diabetes Management and Prevention. Mrs. Begay works with food and nutrition advocates throughout Indian country on improving the nutrition status of American Indians and Alaska Native people. Mrs. Begay has a bachelor's degree and master's degree in nutrition, as well as a graduate degree in business. Help me welcome Mrs. Begay.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. I think it's really amazing that we have a whole conference dedicated to Native nutrition. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, who would have thought that would ever happen? So kudos to Mindy and her team and getting something like this going to Shakopee. It's just wonderful. And I'm so honored to be here. I am Kickapoo. My Begay last name came from my husband. My first name came from my mom. And so that's why I don't look like a Navajo, but my husband certainly does. So just wanted to clear that up right away. All right, so who here is just excited to be here to learn, to get new ideas, great. There's lots of hands going up. It's really wonderful. So I know I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to try to get through as much as I can. How many dietitians are out there? Raise your hand. Okay, there are a lot. So anything that I skip and you have a question about, seek out those dietitians and ask them. They can help you better understand what I miss. So where do we begin? When I was asked to do this talk, it was exciting. I was like, oh, kids, I love kids, yay. That'll be like a low-stress kind of talk. But as I started to prepare for this, I quickly realized, this is kind of scary. Our kids are so important. They're our culture keepers. They're the ones who are going to take care of us. They're going to be our future leaders, all those types of things. And we are the ones who have been tasked to raise them in a good way, to provide them the healthy start in life that they need in order to do that. And so it quickly became a very scary and serious topic, not so much a fun and stress-free one. So anyways, what do our youth look like today? Here's just a quick snapshot. There are over 2 million Native youth in the U.S., and it's growing. Most of our kids are in the public school setting. Some are in the BIA school setting. Our graduation rates are much lower than our white students. Cammie mentioned, poverty and the issues that we have related to that in our communities. And 1 in 3 of our children live in poverty. And it's pretty devastating that we've probably all had been touched by suicide, either in our own families or in our communities. And that's something that is real, and it's something that we do have to address and talk about. And it's hard to think about and talk about it, but it is something that's important. So we know, because we and our children are influenced and molded by our personal and community factors, the variety of adverse childhood experiences that we all may have endured in our lifetimes, and that our children are faced with right now, definitely impact the way that we live our lives and how successful we may be as adults. And the trauma that our children witness in their homes and communities, is likely worse now than it has ever been. And I know I'm not here to talk about trauma, and I'm not an expert on trauma, but I do know that it plays a crucial role in our health and good nutrition. And I think that, I think we can all agree that nutrition really is the basis of our physical, our emotional, our mental health. So we're going to talk a little bit about child nutrition and kind of the different stages. I'm going to kind of breeze through this. So this is the part, if you miss something, ask a fellow dietitian who might be sitting next to you. So Cammie's presentation was awesome. I loved every single part of it. I felt like I wanted to have a baby just so I could breastfeed. And then try to outbeat, maybe like 6 or 8 years of breastfeeding. Just kidding. I don't have children of my own, but I do care for a lot of my children in our family. I do have 2 stepsons who are older, but yeah, so we know that the first 1,000 days is really crucial to our kids, and getting that healthy start through breastfeeding is definitely the best way to do that. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot about this because Cammie already covered it, but we know that early on in development that research has shown how early brain developments, along with our experiences early in life, become embedded into the architecture of our brains. During development, the brain requires specific nutrients like iron and zinc and iodine and folic acid, all these good things that we need, that our brain needs in order to help us be healthy humans. The brain's needs will change depending on the phase of development or growth. If there are shortages early on, its impact in is a reduction in cell production. If there are shortages later in development, it can affect size and complexity. I'm not a neurologist, so I'm not going to say much more about that. So we're going to move on into early childhood, ages 2 to 5. These are really like our Head Start kids. One thing I think we do know is that kids grow really fast. Babies grow super fast. But around this time of the phase of development, the growth starts to become more gradual. And at this stage of development, we oftentimes see our kids become picky eaters. We are experiencing things like food jags, like they only eat a certain food and they won't eat anything else. Sometimes they are going to be really hungry, sometimes they're not. But really that's dependent on where they are in their phase of development. The other thing that we're starting to see and that has been a focus in public health is childhood obesity. And it's been there's been some progress that has happened over the past decade or so, but there's still, work to be done. We know that obesity is associated with many chronic health conditions, including diabetes and hypertension, dyslipidemia, and cardiovascular disease. And so we know that it's really important, it's crucial. And I'm going to talk about some things that may be contributing to that. So really kind of the bottom line when we talk about responsibilities and the roles of parents and children is that, a healthy eating and feeding relationship is really the responsibility between the parent and the child. The parent establishes a safe, nurturing environment to eat or to feed. And they establish, what to eat, when to eat, and where the child eats. And the child really decides on whether they want to eat and how much they're going to eat. I think most of us have probably been raised in families that, you clean your plate, and, no food goes to waste. And so this is definitely something that is kind of a hard habit, I guess, to instill in some of our families, not encouraging our kids to finish their plates. So moving to middle childhood, they start to slow down in their physical growth and how fast they're growing. So sometimes they won't eat hardly anything, sometimes they'll eat a lot, and it really kind of depends on their growth spurts. Some of the nutrition concerns that we start to see at this age group are, they're not drinking as much milk. They're increasing the amount of sweetened beverages that they're drinking, especially things like soft drinks or pop or soda, whatever you call that. They start to limit their intake of fruits and vegetables. They are eating more foods that are higher in fat and sugar and salt. And again, that's when we start to see the rise in overweight and obesity. And also one thing that's really, I think, interesting and not always talked about is that, at this age, they start to realize they start to have body image concerns. I think, bullying might start a lot of times at this age. And so it's something that, we as providers or caretakers should be addressing as well. So adolescence is kind of the next phase. It's a really broad age group from 11 to 21. So it's broken down into kind of 3 stages. But this is, the transition between childhood and adulthood. And it's really characterized by dramatic physical, cognitive, social, and emotional changes. There's a lot of growth happening in all areas at this age group. We know that, it's the most dynamic period of human development. Realizing how many calories, and I'm not saying everyone needs to know how many calories they eat, but just in comparison to what adults or younger children's needs are compared to what an adolescent's needs are pretty crazy. I'm remembering back to my 2 teen stepsons, having them, we have them all summer, every summer, and I don't know how many times when they were in this phase and they were growing that I didn't think I made enough food. And, there are times where I'm like, I'm going to have to stop eating because they're going to probably have to eat what's on my plate because they're eating so much. And they may have been sleeping more, which just, again, means that they're growing. So it's like, this is the second time in our lives when we grow a huge amount, related to our babies when we grow really fast as well. So some of the concerns for adolescents are really related back to middle childhood, those same ones that we talked about. They're increasing their soda consumption, they're not eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, those kinds of things. But also we start to see an increase in not only body image issues, but also eating disorders, and unsafe weight loss methods. And also we start to see kids in this age group have things like hyperlipidemia because of the things that they're eating. And another thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about is we're finding that there's more food insecurity we're seeing in this age range, and especially among families with low incomes. So these are just some of the things. We won't have to go through all of these, but just to highlight that, the desired outcomes for our children and older children and adolescents, a lot of this goes back to kind of their behavior and the thoughts around our attitudes around, body image and the foods that they're eating. And then as far as the role of the family, it's the same thing. The family's responsible for providing healthy meals. It's important that we eat together as families at the table, that we are being aware of maybe the words that we're saying. I know in our communities we like to tease a lot about being fluffy or being sturdy, those kinds of things. But, we have to be careful when we do tease about body image. So kind of the other parts of this bigger nutrition puzzle, there are a couple of things that I'll mention. Sugar-sweetened beverages is one. This is a huge public health effort right now. There are a lot of programs out there right now that are working on this, and it's important. But one thing that I think a lot of our maybe younger families or even some of our grandmas or aunties taking care of babies maybe not realize that juice is such, the marketing out there is that it's good for you, it's healthy, it's made from fruit. But we know that juice, it can be something that we want to either avoid, especially in the first 6 months of life, but also to limit. So really, the recommendation is 4 to 6 ounces a day for kids who are over 6 months of age. And that's just, and they don't actually need that juice. If they can eat an orange rather than drink orange juice, that's going to be much preferred. If they can eat an apple over than drinking apple juice, then that's going to be the preferred way of getting, that fruit serving as well. So, and one thing to watch out for, and I just saw this in the airport yesterday, was maybe 1.5-year-old baby in a stroller with a bottle of juice. And that's something that we know can be very harmful. We know that, when our kids are drinking their calories, they're filling up, and so they may not have an appetite to actually eat the foods that we need them to eat to get the nutrients that they need. There are other sugar-sweetened beverages that fall into the same category. Our fruit drinks, soft drinks, sports drinks, our sweet tea if you're in the South, and even things like energy drinks. So those are things that we also have to kind of consider whenever we're talking about these sugar-sweetened beverages. And what's the best beverage that we should be drinking all the time? Water, right? Yeah. So water. And I know that there are communities who may not have good access to water, safe drinking water, who may need to, drink bottled water. But yes, water is definitely the best choice. So again, another part of this nutrition puzzle is body image. And we talked a little bit about this, but these are some things that, we can do ourselves, being a good role model and avoid, criticizing our own body image and the way that we look, focusing on traits other than appearance when we're talking to children. These are things that we can do in our own families, and also things that we can encourage the people that we work with to do. So say someone has, say they have we know what to do, we know what we're supposed to be feeding our children and when and how, but how do we actually get this nutritious foods? And it's actually, a really important topic when we talk about food access. We know that a lot of our rural communities don't have access to good foods or healthy foods or fresh produce. There's a lot of our communities have kind of this one-stop shop convenience store in the middle of nowhere that may be the laundromat, the grocery store, the bill-paying place, all these things, and not have any fresh produce to offer at all, which is something that, a lot of us dietitians are saying, eat more fruits and vegetables. Well, if they can't get it, they're not going to be eating more fruits and vegetables. So it is definitely a problem and an issue. So getting the right nutrition. So say they do have access to a store where they can get food. They may not have other resources. They may not have a good, they may not have a car, for one, but they may not have a refrigerator to store, food. There are other things that play an issue in this. So food insecurity is when households have difficulty providing enough food for everyone in their household at some time due to a lack of resources. And the way that they're getting any kind of food may be the cheaper, processed, inexpensive food that we know don't have nutrients at all, or much in the way of healthy nutrients. So when people who experience food insecurity, there are a lot of things that are usually going on. They're at a greater risk for being emotionally distressed. They eat cheaper processed foods that aren't healthy. They have a lot of times no control very little choice over what they eat because they may be getting all that they can, all that's offered to them from like a food pantry or something like that. So it'd be hard to, have a balanced meal. They have periods when they don't eat and then overeat when they have food. So, these again are things that, it's important for us to understand whenever we have these big main messages of eat more fruits and vegetables, eat a balanced meal plan, or, if people are afraid to see a dietitian because they're being, having their finger pointed at them, this is a lot of the times why they don't like us dietitians. So we need to be, more encompassing of these kinds of things and keep them in mind. So when children and adolescents are experiencing food insecurity, there are a lot of things that can happen. A lot of times our kids will have more asthma. They can be low in iron. They have a greater chance of being hospitalized. They have chronic health and behavior issues. They are at a greater developmental risk. They're obviously not getting the nutrients that they need in order to grow healthy. If moms don't have enough healthy foods or the right nutrients, their babies are born too soon or maybe at a low birth rate. A lot of times our kids will have a higher anxiety and depression because they don't realize that they don't have enough food or the food that they're eating is not helping them. And then also, suicide in adolescence is another impact that that food insecurity can have on our youth. So just, understanding, when does this happen? When is this likely to occur? A lot of times it might be at the end of the month or when the SNAP benefits run out or some kind of nutrition support or assistance that they're getting runs out. It could be during the holidays, when kids are out of school, they're at home. So the families are having to, feed them not only just dinner, but they're having to feed them 2 extra meals that day if they're lucky. Birthdays, during life cycle rituals, we have feasts that happen in our communities, and food is what brings us together, and it's so important. And this is a time that, if your auntie is the one who's known to host everyone, to make all the food, thinking about how that impacted her budget or what she's going to have to maybe compromise on later on in the month, is something that we have to think about too. During seasonal times, we have our bills may be higher. So if you're in the desert, your electric may be higher because you're trying to keep your house cool. And then summertime, so your kids are home and you need them to keep the house cool all day. Or if you're in a cold environment, you have to keep your house warm. And so, those kinds of things are definitely impact the food dollars that are in our households. So what can we do? One, being aware, I think is a good starting point. The other way that we can help with this is by screening. There's a 2 question or statement screening statement that we can ask, and if the response is often true or sometimes true to either of these statements, that they're likely to have food insecurity. But it's not just screening. So once we find out, okay, so there is an issue, they may be experiencing food insecurity, what happens next? We need to connect them with the food resources that are offered in our communities. That means that we know maybe the eligibility requirements for SNAP or for the FDIPR program, the food distribution program, or maybe we know there's a church food pantry that welcomes people one day a week on this day. And so it's important for us to connect those resources to the people who may be experiencing food insecurity. This is just a toolkit for pediatricians that came out a couple years ago about how to address food insecurity more so in the clinic setting, especially if you're working in a pediatric clinic. And there are other resources available that Patty Keenan and I will be doing a workshop later today and tomorrow that will give you more information on that. So what's our community doing? There are so many programs and initiatives that are happening right now in Indian country that there's no way I could, I don't know about all of them, but there's no way I could even share about all the good things that are happening, addressing nutrition and with our youth. There are a couple of youth-led projects I just wanted to give a shout out to. So Azalea Yazi, I don't know if Azalea is here by chance, but she single-handedly got a grant in California to help teach Native youth how to grow and cook their traditional foods. Also, the Black Mesa Water Coalition. Is anybody from Black Mesa here? No, okay. They just won an award last week, actually, for food sovereignty efforts in Hopi and Navajo communities. And it was a student-led group that started in 2001, but it's since grown into more than just students. But these are things that our young people are already doing, and I just have to say that I am so inspired by our youth today and the things that they're doing. I trying to think when I was their age, there's no way I would do some of the things that they're doing, and they're truly making an impact on in their communities and in the world. Another more university hosted or sponsored program is the Chili Plus program. This is based out of New Mexico, the University of New Mexico. This is a really encompassing program that works with Head Starts. I think they're in 89 different Head Start programs or early child care centers. They have different components. There are 6 program components that they provide in their programs. And if you want to learn more about that, I would check out their website. And we'll be talking about that later in our workshops as well. Another is Johns Hopkins. Anybody from Johns Hopkins here? No? Okay. I'm talking about all these people who are not here, but that's okay, because I know there are people here that I will talk about. So Johns Hopkins has a couple of programs. Family Spirit is is a home-based or home visiting program that's made for and by Native people. They have paraprofessionals that go into homes for people in I think 5 communities in the Southwest, and it's evidence-based, and they've done some amazing work. Feast for the Future is kind of a more recent program that they've established. It has their website has again a lot more resources related to traditional foods, helping communities start programs around nutrition and healthy eating, and so they're a great resource. So I know there are people from NB3 here, but this is, again, just a shout out on other youth programs or national efforts that are taking place in Indian country, and they're doing some really great work. Again, there are more that should be on this list, probably, but these programs are doing just wonderful things for our youth in the area of healthy eating. One that I really wanted to kind of focus on, though, is a special project that's being done at the Chickasaw Nation. We know that, with technology now, that we can get food delivered to our door. And Chickasaw Nation has found a way to have a grant to pilot this project where kids who are pre-K through 12th grade who receive free school lunches or school meals at school districts in Chickasaw Nation can get a 25-pound box of shelf-stable food delivered to their door every month. for each child. They also receive a $15 voucher to buy fresh produce and, at approved farmers markets or at Chickasaw Nation grocery stores. And I think, from what I hear and what I know, this program is going really, really well. It ends next spring, I believe in May of next year. But I do hope to see more of these types of things happening in our communities. I think, thinking outside of the box are different ways of having food delivered to our people, because again, we have those issues of getting to a store that may have fresh produce or healthy food options. This is you bring the food to them. I can't wait until we have like drones that are delivering food to our really rural reservations where, a UPS truck can't make it to the middle of nowhere on Navajo Nation. So don't steal my idea, because, this government thing doesn't work out. I'll have to I'll have to do that. I am almost up for time, but just wanted to share a couple of resources, actually one resource. We updated My Native Plate, so if you haven't heard about it yet, you can order it for free from the website, from the ihs.gov/diabetes website. You can order hard copies, but you can also print them yourself if you'd like. There's a PDF version. So this is the front. We've added more vegetables, which is great. We replaced the milk with water. We know a lot of our people are lactose intolerant, and water's the best, beverage choice. We also added fresh berries on this front side. The back side, we changed it up just a little bit, not a whole lot, but again, it's just a different kind of look to it, I guess. So this was updated, just wanted to let you guys know. And also wanted to invite you to our next National Diabetes Conference that's happening next August 6th through 9th. We are going to have a whole morning focused on nutrition and for our plenaries. And so we're really excited about that. We'd love to see you there. We'll have an opportunity for people to, we'll have a call for abstracts so people can, give a proposal for their program if they want to share what they're doing and speak at the conference. So be on the lookout for that. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.